purpose. Now, this uprising that began a couple of weeks ago with such power and energy does appear to be losing momentum. And if anything right now, it looks as though the pro-Gaddafi forces have the upper hand.
Hundreds of protesters have clashed with police in Egypt's second biggest city, Alexandria. Several people were injured. This amateur video is said to show protesters ransacking the headquarters of the state security agency on Friday. Protesters said police were trying to destroy documents linked to human rights abuses during ousted President Hosni Mubarak's rule. Witnesses say the security forces opened fire on the demonstrators. Egypt's former Interior Minister Habib El Adli is facing court on money laundering charges. El Adli was arrested last month. He's also being investigated for ordering the shooting of protesters during the recent popular uprising. Let's go to our correspondent, Shireen Tadros. She's outside the Cairo Criminal Court. Shireen, what's the background to this case with El Adli? What are we expecting to happen in court today?
Well, today is in fact just the first session of what could be a long trial, and what we're hearing now is that all the journalists, the media, the lawyers are all inside the courtroom. They're still waiting for Habib El Adli, the former Interior Minister, to make an appearance. But meanwhile, here outside the court, outside the criminal court, just behind me here, you can see hundreds of demonstrators, at least dozens around here, have amassed. They are here because they're not happy about the way in which the trial is proceeding. More specifically, they want Habib El Adli to face more serious charges than just money laundering and profiteering, which carries a maximum sentence of about 7 years. They want him to face charges on manslaughter for ordering his forces to fire on protesters during the revolution. So they're calling for his execution. That is what they're saying behind me right now. They think that that is what justice would be. And of course, the significance of this trial isn't just that this is the first minister that served under Hosni Mubarak to face trial, but of course also because Habib El Adli was for over a decade the face of the security apparatus, an institution that is loathed here in Egypt.
Shireen, away from the court, we understand there have been clashes in Alexandria as protesters there stormed the state security offices. What more can you tell us about that?
Yes, well, in fact, there were several incidents around Egypt, in Cairo and in Alexandria, to do with protesters surrounding state security buildings. Now, the main state security building in Alexandria was, in fact, surrounded late Friday night by several hundred protesters, and some of them did in fact make it inside the building, according to witnesses and according to reports. Now, they were asking for the dismantling of the security apparatus, and what they have been telling us is that once they were inside the building, they witnessed police officers shredding ID documents and also evidence which could incriminate them and their bosses. There's certainly a lot of anger in Egypt right now, and a sort of a refocus, if you like, of the protesters to dismantle the security apparatus and to bring to account those within that institution, which for years really humiliated and dealt so harshly with the Egyptian population at large.
All right, Shireen Tadros there in Cairo. Shireen, thank you very much. China's Premier Wen Jiabao has pledged to reduce inflation and corruption and raise income levels. He told the National People's Congress in Beijing the measures are necessary to maintain social stability. Here's our China correspondent, Melissa Chan.
It's a formal and serious affair, with officials from across the country, near and far, convening over the next 10 days. There's often a celebratory mood on the first day of Congress, with leaders looking back at the past year's economic accomplishments. But in the Great Hall of the People, China's premier used his opening speech as an opportunity for an honest assessment of what's going on in the country.
We are keenly aware that we still have a serious problem, and that our development is not yet balanced, coordinated, or sustainable.
The premier went on to discuss the threat of corruption, telling the people sitting before him that they, the officials, will be required to disclose their income, real estate, and investment details. He promised better social services to citizens.
We have not yet fundamentally solved a number of issues that the masses feel strongly about, namely the lack of high-quality educational and medical resources and their uneven distribution, increasing upward pressure on prices and exorbitant housing price increases.
Real estate is indeed a tremendous problem for most Chinese, And on Saturday came the enormous pledge from the podium to eventually provide low-income housing for 20% of the country's urban households.
Every year, Premier Wen Jiabao takes the opportunity on the opening day of the National People's Congress to remind the people the government cares. But this year, more than the past, there are greater assurances from the government to improve things such as healthcare and education. It's a more worried government. Melissa Chan, AlJazeera, Beijing.
The US Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, has condemned the killing of at least 6 female protesters in Côte d'Ivoire. They were taking part in a rally calling for President Laurent Gbagbo to accept November's election result and step down. Here's Imran Khan.
Dancing, singing, the message is clear. Gbagbo must go. It's a light-hearted demonstration. The women use leaves to symbolically brush away his regime. Then this. These pictures were taken on Thursday and could mark the turning point in the disputed elections of Côte d'Ivoire. 6 women were murdered. You can clearly see camouflage vehicles drive through the crowd. The UN claimed that these were pro-government forces. That's denied by the Gbagbo loyalist army, who said that they were not operating here in Abobo. Many fear that more incidents like this could drag the country into civil war. Kofi Annan, the former UN Secretary General, says Gbagbo must step down.
The pressure is on, and I think if the population sustain their efforts, maintain the pressure for him to go, he eventually will have to go. Other leaders said they weren't going, but they are not around.
The situation has led to widespread panic. On Friday, many rushed to withdraw money from banks. Others are fearful that continued violence could lead to genocide, that thousands could die. Imran Khan, AlJazeera.
We'll update you with all the latest news out of Libya after the break. Plus,
they're saying go back home and get out of our country and all that.
Muslim residents of a California county describe how they were taunted by fellow Americans. And lessons in revolt. 5 years after Nepal's civil war, why peace has brought little progress. More on that. Stay with us.
Hello, it's looking noticeably disturbed across a good part of North Asia, but at least we will see milder weather making its way back in. We've got this cloud just running in the Korean Peninsula through the Sea of Japan. It will bring outbreaks of rain, maybe some snow into northern sections of Honshu. But look at these temperatures. We're getting up to 15 Celsius at long last for Tokyo. That's not too bad. We're getting up to around 6 in Pyongyang, 9 Celsius there for Seoul. Drier weather coming in behind. A northerly wind, though, so it will feel a little on the fresh side. Double figures there for Beijing. Come further south, well, we're getting some very heavy rain into central parts of China, easing its way through Shanghai, and that rather wet weather stretching all the way down towards the